without further ado, I will hand over to our moderator, Mr. Christopher.
Okay, thank you very much, Donald, for that wonderful introduction. So, again, without further ado, I'll straight up go to the point. We have had some of the back introduction. So, Mr. Natif.
Yes.
On a personal end, as a fellow healthcare practitioner, I must say that I'm excited to interview you, especially as someone who's doing a startup and somebody who's also looking towards an exit like you.
Yeah, I saw your thing. You guys have really cool branding.
Okay, so we already had a brief introduction about who Natif is. Maybe you could give us a bit more, just 1 or 2 minutes for those who maybe want to know a little bit about who he is, and we can get over with that. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Anthony Natif. Oftentimes people think I'm Muslim because of the Natif name. I've gotten a few dates because of that. Hallelujah. I grew up in Seta in Mukono. I was raised by our grandmother. She raised almost 28 of us, I think. Grew up in a large, happy family. Went to high school in Namiyango. I never forget that. Makerere University, University of Washington. Ended up in business, activism, cancer care, and all sorts of things. But oftentimes when people ask who Natif is, I usually tell people I'd rather have other people answer that question. Depending on who you ask, someone will say, this is the meanest, worst dude you'll ever find in the world. And another person will say, this is the kindest, most generous person you'll find in the world. In between those, there's a truth. So both positions can be true. The true answer lies there. Like any human, I'm a pack of contradictions. But ultimately, like I keep saying, I hope that at the end, when my number is up, I would have done more good than bad.
Okay, nice. Hope you find the mean between those two extremes. So my second question to you is, I did some background history on you, and turns out you have been quite the enterprising guy all the way back before even Guardian Health. So could you briefly tell us, did you always know that you were born to be an entrepreneur, or are there circumstances that forced you to go into business? Because I understand way back from childhood you were involved in small businesses here and there. By the time you even joined secondary, you had already began saving. So what inspired you, motivated you to do this? Even when you were doing your pharmacy degree at Makerere, you were still doing business. Is this in your blood? Is this something that, tell us, how did you become an entrepreneur?
Interesting. I really appreciate you not mentioning my weed selling days.
You've not done that. The UN has legalized it.
Yeah, like any entrepreneur seated here, most Ugandans end up in entrepreneurship by necessity more than anything, because we live in a country where you have more than 600,000 Ugandans hit the job market every year for less than 50,000 formal sector job openings. The numbers just don't work. And quite frankly, I listen to a lot of people who say we are blessed, we have a demographic boom coming up. What they're really saying is we live in a country that's the second youngest in the world. When you think about it, our median age is around 16.3. We are only older than Niger, which has a median age, last I checked, was around 14.7. If you're wondering, the median age of the African continent is around 18.5. So we are pretty young, and we really are having children at such a fast pace. So if economies are going to work, you need to make sure that the rate at which you have your children hit the formal sector, the employable age, you have sufficient number of jobs that are going to match that. Now, sadly, that's not our situation in Uganda, and it wasn't unique for me. Like I told you, I grew up, like you probably found out, I was a son of a teacher who grew through the ranks to become a district education officer. Back in the days, we probably had 10 districts, so that was a big deal. Did a lot of work in defining Uganda's education policy, was fairly decently politically connected, but he was too strict. He stuck to certain principles like no corruption and what. So after some time, when this government, sorry, it may sound a bit political, started doing, some of its leaders started doing certain things in the early 90s, he quit cold turkey because he didn't believe in the corruption that he was seeing in the education sector. So it meant he went back to SETA and started selling beer and whatever in his bar, restaurant, and lodge. I'm sure you checked that out. And he valued education so much, and back in the day, civil servants believed that the best education was in traditional schools. So think Budo, Namilyango, Smack, Gaza, Namagunga, all that stuff. Imagine you have 25 kids and they're all going to those schools, and all you have is like 5 rooms in a lodge in SETA that you sell at 7,500 shillings a day and a few beers. The numbers eventually don't work, and I was one of the youngest. So my grandmother, bless her soul, quickly taught me that, I needed to work. I was 6. So we lived close to a well. I don't know, some of you guys are planned children, you don't know what this means, but there's, water that comes from the ground, and then you have a well constructed up there, and then, collect that water. It was spring water, push it 3 kilometers to SETA town and sell to the rich people. At the time, SETA town didn't have running water. These days, SETA town is like Kampala. People fight for land in that place. But I'm talking about 1993, 1994. So there was no running water, and rich people at the time would buy water at around 200 shillings a jerrycan, a 20-liter jerrycan. So my first job was really to push a guy who would put 15 jerrycans on a small bicycle, those Roadmaster Hero bicycles. So you push them up the hill, 3K, get to the town, maybe in an hour you've sold out, jump on the bike, go back, do that 10 times. At the end of the day, you'd walk away with like 1,000 or 2,000 shillings. And we're talking 1994 shillings. That was a lot of money. And so, as far as I remember, buy the shirt on my back and the shoe on my feet, and it has never changed. I am eternally grateful for that. Yeah.
And would you say that this pre-startup business experience, did it somehow play, shape, or influence you at Gleaned? Was it important?
Yes. To be honest, I look back a lot of times when I'm talking to my rich friends. They look at me with so much sadness. I don't understand it. I look back with so much gratitude because the pain I took growing up, I'll tell you, I quickly learned. I was probably 11 years old, no, 10, when I learned that selling weed brought in a lot of money. So I upgraded from fetching water to flipping joints. If you look closely on one of my lips, I still have a scar. I was getting high on my own supply and the seed burnt me. So those are lessons, entrepreneurship lessons you learn quite early on. And no amount of MBAs or classes or conversations like this is going to teach you some of those lessons. And quickly, P7, I would, on one hand, collect money as playing cashier in a local cinema. We call them Bibanda. It has nothing to do with the look of Cineplex or these fancy cinemas you guys from the West are used to. This is a dingy thing that can fall on you anytime. It has loudspeakers that, you can barely hear what's going on, but, everyone is sweating like a pig, but it's so much fun. So I would leave school at around school ended at 3 p.m. I always had permission to leave at 1 and go and do my stuff. And that stuff taught me a lot, but the most important lesson I probably took from my childhood was, one, resilience. I just never know when to quit. That's even up to today, I just don't know when I'm beaten. But also, and for me, this is the most important, is I know how to exist without having anything. So no one can teach you that. There's so much, it sounds twisted, but there's so much value in growing up with nothing. And my grandmother, our grandmother, I call her my grandmother because we all used to fight for her and thought we were her favorites. But my grandmother used to tell me to be comfortable with having nothing, because if you lost everything and you haven't lost yourself, you are going to be fine. And so really, if someone teaches you that before you're a teenager, as an entrepreneur, it's the best advice you'll ever have, I think, because having nothing is your comfort zone. So that really means very little shakes you. You can swing for the fences, take all the risks you have to take. As long as you don't lose your life, you're fine. And really, when you look back, even at my investors at the time they post investment in my company, they realized I was such a risk taker, and they put so many guardrails around me because this guy, you would wake up and he has bet the entire farm. But I feel like that's where I got most of my strength and my appetite for risk. I knew that, having nothing was my comfort zone.
So, in short, if you are willing to sell weed at 15, you can go start.
It wasn't willingness. I think, to be honest, I didn't go in there because...
Okay, maybe to the next question, actually coming from that. So we can see all the way back you were into the world of business. So
Yes.
what changed to now say to do a much more legal or professional business? Let's call it a startup. Yeah, what motivated you to say, okay, enough of being a cashier at the cinema hall, enough of selling all these things. Now let me actually, because I understand you focused now on people's healthy care. What was the change, and what were the first years of doing Guardian Health like with this foundation?
I mean, I keep telling people that I think it was written in the stars I was always going to sell drugs.
It's true.
It's, I mean, amazing how God works, except
Breaking Bad.
I also run my father's bar. So in one of the Guardians in Tinder, if you're very observant, there's a placard behind the counter that has a barman is a pharmacist with less inventory. But really, to answer your question, seriously though, I didn't think I was going to be an entrepreneur. I chose to study pharmacy at the time because I didn't want to be poor. And at the time, I'm really old. I'm going to reveal my age by talking about events in my life. When I finished high school in Namiyango, the school had to give me scholarships, otherwise I couldn't have managed to get through school. They would give scholarships to the best student in class. Sometimes when I wasn't the best, they would still give me scholarships. in the hope that I was going to be the best next term, and eventually I would. So chose to study pharmacy because at the time the school took only 10 people. There was only one pharmacy school in Uganda. You knew that if you were to get there, you really had to be the very best. So again, I chose to study pharmacy out of necessity. I knew if I finish, I would get a job. Then I get in there. I was pretty decent in class. I really wanted to be a professor. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I wanted to get out, finish my bachelor's degree, go do my master's degree, do my PhD, settle somewhere in the West, marry my person, have 2 dogs, white pickety fence, go to church on Sunday, and and have ice cream after the boring life.
Boring life.
Then in my second year, some guy called Patrick Ogwang, you probably know him, showed up looking to do Bible study, the guy of Covidex. And I was very kind to him. I'm like, you're looking for a kid to do Bible study? I know that kid. Invite this guy to my room. He sits down, finds there were so many flip charts on the wall. And those flip charts, I used to teach guys. We used to have discussions in there and they had benzene rings. So he's like, dude, after I go down to buy him soda, university student, but I had some decent money. So I go down, this is a total stranger. So I bring him a Coca-Cola, I go look for the kid. Unfortunately, I didn't find the kid. I come back, he's so engrossed in my work. He's like, are you studying chemistry? I'm like, no, I'm studying pharmacy. He's like, oh, incidentally, I'm a pharmacist. Do you want to come to my pharmacy in Gayaza? On Gayaza Road to Moonlight? I'm like, fantastic. So then I started working with him in the evening. Then a year in, I met this guy called Grace. That man mentored me, God bless him. He was buying a pharmacy along the Winton Road, the Winton Road National Theatre. Below that is where buses used to park. Across the road, there's a Vine pharmacy. So he was doing stock taking. He's like, I need the stock taking done in a day. We went, did it very fast, faster than he expected. Paid us twice. He looked so cool. At the time, he was the only one with a chain of pharmacies. He looked young, driving a green fancy Peugeot. I walk up to him. I'm like, can I work for you for free? He's like, yeah, come to Kamocha. That's when I landed on the Bobby Wines and all those guys. This is 2003, 2004. So I start working with him. I didn't work for free. He paid me, thankfully, and taught me a lot of the stuff I knew. And that's the guy with whom I started my first pharmacies before I finished pharmacy school. That's another long story. We probably would need an hour to get into that, but just know he helped me buy my first 2 pharmacies. I finished my pharmacy school. Remember I told you I wanted to get a job. Turns out I finished pharmacy school and ended up working pro bono. So I ended up working in cancer care, set up the pharmacy at the Uganda Cancer Institute, their first pharmacy. With their budget, I was now getting back onto the professor track. Grew their medicine budget, I think, from 50 million shillings a year to like $2 million in 18 months. They were so happy. They made me their head of finance and administration, did their essential drugs list for Uganda, raised money for that building that you guys call the Uganda Cancer Institute, wrote their 20-year strategic plan, and they helped me get into grad school. And now when I was in grad school at the University of Washington, Grace says, let me come and visit. Funny story, he's coming to see someone in Seattle. He landed in California, on the West Coast. So I had to find student money to fly down, see him on the Hollywood Boulevard. I still have that picture on my Facebook. In an Indian restaurant somewhere there, we did a deal, agreed $100,000 to buy me out of my pharmacies under him. And that's the seed capital I used in Guardian. So he probably paid me $50K on that. Came back here to visit and say bye to the guys who were working in the pharmacy in Kabalagala. As I sloped down, I saw a place, very nice place. I felt it would be suitable for pharmacy. I'm like, perfect. I call Grace. I'm like, do you mind me setting up a pharmacy here? He's like, no, it's far enough from my place. I paid for it. Remember, I was going back to school. I had no reason to be investing in a business. I knew I was finishing my fellowship, finishing my master's, doing my PhD, becoming a professor. My grandmother would be proud. Here I am paying rent, buying out, the bank had actually, Stanbic was taking that place. I paid more money than them for a year. The landlord said, screw these guys, you're going to get the place. I didn't have a company name, but I knew that when I was in the UK, I used to enjoy reading The Guardian. And now with my US experience, I would see insurance companies make a lot of money. So I'm like, okay, this looks like a very nice name for a health insurance company. What I can do is I can do vertical integration, set up pharmacies, set up clinics, set up an insurance company, call it Guardian. It projects this whole thing of protection. That was my goal. I didn't even care about pharmacies that much. So then I asked a friend of mine, I'm like, take 50% in this company, I'll bring all the money, I'll do all the stuff, just take 50% and run it. I took 10, my daughter took 40. I go back to the US, this was November 2012. Go back to the US, the guy didn't start, despite having gotten him all the licensing, paid rent, organized suppliers. I called him, he's like, no, for me, I want to be employed. I like my job. He was working with MJAP. You know MJAP, the Makerere Johns Hopkins AIDS program. He was their pharmacist. So he gives me back my shares. I had to come back, get a team of 4 people. We start in March 2013 with $50,000. Within 2 years, we're turning over $2 million. And so we got so excited. And this was organic growth. Supplier credit. People in the pharma business know this. Once you set up and your reputation is good, our game is location, nice location, pimp it up, boom. Guys will give you all the credit you want until you start getting high on the credit. Then you have a problem, and that's what happened. So,
Okay, that's quite a story, and maybe one more question related to that. What metrics were you following, or what would I call your areas of focus to grow? Because to reflect back to the theme of today's meetup, it is how to make your first $1 million as a startup. So how was this for you, and what metrics were you looking at? What product market fit did you have in mind? Any tips that you can share on that?
yeah, you know, most of us, no one teaches us how to do business or how to grow business. You just land in there out of necessity. You've left campus, you have no job, you find something, you're selling it, it's working, then suddenly it's growing. You start borrowing, you don't know why you're borrowing, you don't know why you're growing. It is the life, and it shouldn't surprise you that most of our companies, by year 2, more than 90% of the companies have failed. And oftentimes, because we set up these companies for subsistence, our definition of success is very narrow. So, a lot of guys, I keep using this example, think, success is, I have a 4-bedroom house in Nigeria, my child goes to Kampala parents, I can afford to rent a house for my side door in Kenya, that's success, I have a second-hand Japanese car. Now, no, don't laugh, guys. This is it. Then those are the guys who have been successful. And they'll load it over their OBs. You guys have failed life. Now for me, I would just see the money that was coming into the bank, and I thought we were making money, we were balling. I didn't have a board. I didn't have a CFO. I didn't know our bottom line. I didn't know frankly, I didn't know how much money we were making. So pharmacy business is weird. At 100 million shillings, you're making a lot of money. At 200 million, you're making a lot of money. 300, you're making a lot of money. 400, you're making a lot of money. 50 million, you're still making a lot of money if you're in a cheap location. So if you do not have management accounts at the end of the month, you cannot know how much money you made or how much supplier credit you took. And then our growth, for us, all we thought about was, and we felt was smart. I say we, it was me and 4 other friends that were working for me. So I'm like, man, Tony, National Drug Authority now, this is 2015, is going to stop licensing pharmacies anywhere in Kampala and the major towns of Uganda. These guys have given me a scoop because they were my classmates from Namilyango Pharmacy School. They're the guys now running NDA. They're like, man, you need to get territory as fast as possible. Now, that's very smart, okay? You have a scoop that most people do not have. Because you're one of the biggest, as probably, I think as the biggest, the regulator wants you to have an input in the regulations that, run the industry. So, stupidly, I go and I'm like, I am going to open pharmacies in all these places. So I started buying a lot of pharmacies. Remember, I'm using supplier credit. I do not know how much of that money is actually mine. Okay? Now, the only reasonable thing I did is to choose the best locations. You know how we did it? We went to players in the mobile money space and just asked them, where do you do your biggest mobile money transactions? So a guy says, Ntinda, Bugolobi, Bukoto, Bwaise, Kawempe. Then you drill down and you're like, okay, what's the volume per transaction? 3,000 shillings, 2,000, 100,000, and all that stuff. So 3,000, 2,000, you cut out Bwaise and Kawempe. You go to these other places. So then I was like, can I find whoever owns a struggling pharmacy in the fancy locations in these places and buy? Now, if you approach a guy who is running a pharmacy, a guy will sell you an empty room, but he has the rights to trade from there. He will sell you that empty room for like 300 million shillings. So if you're wondering, if you see Guardian has the best locations, it's not by accident. So what I did was the equivalent of getting $500,000, buying a Ferrari, driving it, you're approaching Mavira, you're running out of fuel, you don't care about the warning lights, you're like, I'm in a Ferrari, yo. And then the thing stops in Mavira. Guys are coming at you, you know they're going to come out of the forest, take your Ferrari and kill you. Another guy comes and says, I have 200,000 shillings, can I own half of this? What decision would you make? You take it. You take the money. So quite frankly, that was my kind of scenario. And I hope you guys don't get to that. So I labor to tell you these stories because sometimes I wake up and I'm like, dang. But then also I look back and I'm like, I actually did the right thing. The company is thriving because of this. Now, quickly we got all this territory and we couldn't make it work. The pharmacies that were supporting the expansion, pharmacies making like 300 million shillings a month in pharmacy circles. Let these guys not lie to you. I hope URA is not listening. These guys will do maybe margins of like 42%. Yeah, gross profit margin. A pharmacy that's making that kind of money, like 300 million, suddenly is making 20 million shillings a month. Because the suppliers are no longer giving you credit, you're defaulting on payment deadlines, you're struggling to pay salaries, you're struggling to pay landlords because you've overexpanded. And poop is hitting the fan. You run to this bank that you used to see your billions of shillings come through, and I kid you not, this is a real story, and I still wake up. When you wake up sometimes from a dream, and you think you have an exam the next day, and you wake up in a sweat. I went to this bank. They agreed to loan me 500 million shillings. On Friday, told me my loan has been approved. On Monday, I go to sign the offer letter. They tell me, sorry, the head of credit on a whim, he checked up on your file and found you had 2 checks that bounced. So you're going to have to run this account for the next 3 months. I didn't have 3 months. That company was going to collapse. So I had to quickly think. I went back to a fund that had approached me earlier and I just told them I didn't care. I had enough money. I went back and told them, guys, how do you feel about doing that deal again? They're like, let's look at your books. You have no profit. But they've already seen that I've got all this territory And there are funds that are coming into this place. There's a company here that's funded by $1 billion fund, but it can't expand because of these barriers to entry into the pharma space. So I'd overcome that, but then they were valuing me on profitability. I'm saying guys value me on territory. So if I'd taken their money, if I had a board earlier when they approached me, I would have taken their money before I went on to an expansion drive. I went on to an expansion drive and lost everything. So they got more value than they would have got earlier, even when I had less territory, because then I had profit. Now, so for entrepreneurs here, if you're building your company, the best time to sell that company or get people on board is when it's making a lot of money. It's counterintuitive. Most of us go to raise capital when we are bleeding. You're opening yourself up to sharks. They are seeing blood in the water. So always think about it that way. You're dealing with sharks on the other side. Any guy who comes to give you financing, believe me, that's a shark. They're out for their own pound of flesh. So you have to come into that arrangement when you know you're negotiating from a strong position. But if there's blood in the water, they're going to pick you apart. So that was my situation. But looking back, I think I've given you the advice you need. I would have done it better. I would have looked at the numbers before making any decision on expansion or any other step in the business. I would have had a board. I probably still would have expanded, but smarter. But, those are lessons you live, you learn, you come back better. I don't regret them.
Okay, so my next question now is
Yes.
to do with human resource guardian health. You expanded from 3 pharmacies to 19, and did you maintain the quality throughout all those 19 branches? And if so, how were you doing the quality assurance? Because one thing that I know is now you are in different places, and Guardian Health was known strictly from that side of Captain at AIU.
Yeah, that's our base. I love that place.
Yes, now you have come to these other places. Was there a change in quality? How did you maintain? And what, I understand you were hiring people from the pharmacy world, minus the fact that they are from the pharmacy world. What other qualities or non-academic qualities were you looking at in your employing aspect? Thank you.
So oftentimes entrepreneurs think, and if I do a poll out of 100 people, I'm like, what's the greatest challenge on expansion? Most of you will tell me financing. But when you get that money, you get different problems. When you're growing a company that you've started with like 4 people, you know each other, you know their children, you know their partners, you know their birthdays, you know all this stuff, they have bought into your vision, okay? It's much easier to run even without major controls in place. But as you scale, it becomes extremely difficult to scale company culture. It becomes difficult to scale ethics. It becomes difficult to scale a lot of that stuff. So it happened to me as well. We opened we bought 10 pharmacies in a space of maybe 9 months. That's absurd. So each pharmacy has 5 people. Each one of these people comes from a different society. You haven't had time to bond with them, to teach them, to get them to buy into your vision. You're the vision holder. A company needs you to be able to preach that. So if you haven't done that, you find people doing their shop in shop, they steal your stuff, they do all manner of things. The way they serve clients is not the same as you used to do it. So eventually, you lose on the quality, you lose product, you lose a lot of things. You lose the soul of the company. It did happen. But then I quickly learned one lesson. I was salty, of course, because I made sure we used to pay at least 30-40% above market rate. I thought by compensating these guys enough money, they wouldn't steal and all that stuff. But always trust, but verify. So lesson I learned was get your best people to do the hiring. So if you're a very good employee, I'll give you the rights to go and find people like you. And I will hire them based on your recommendation. So what that does is it puts the pressure on you, because you and I have a relationship that's more than just employee-boss. But friends, it will put the pressure on you to make sure these people perform. It's a trick in hiring. Get the best people you have to hire for you, their colleagues, and in a very subtle way, put the pressure on them to do what? To train up these people. And also, there's a break-even point on employees that every entrepreneur needs to actually think about. Oftentimes we think, oh, we paid them, they've gone. But when you hire someone, you're going to invest a lot of time in training. We used to do constant training. If you go to Guardian now, I think they have the best trained staff. It's the only, I can say this without equivocation, it's the only chain of pharmacies that will have a pharmacist behind the counter anytime it's open. That's deliberate. And then you will surround them with other staff, other cadres that then they constantly teach. Okay? So you hire the principals and make sure they are hired by the best, and then surround them with decent talent and emphasize training. So we learned that from our failures, and I think we perfected it. And one of the metrics that was most important to me when I was still running that company was employee turnover. It was a fireable offense for the HR if we lost more than 5 people in 2 quarters, unless those people were leaving because they had stolen or done any, such stuff. And so that company, time I was there, employee turnover came to like less than 2% a year. And that's because at that point they had bought into the company culture, they were well remunerated, they felt appreciated. My job as a boss, as a founder then moved from sweating the details, like I didn't even know how to run, the technical sides of running a pharmacy. By the time I exited Guardian, if you asked me to open a pharmacy by myself, of course I would do it. You never forget how to ride a bike. But imagine a guy is telling you to ride a bike after 10 years and they're sending you into traffic. I would struggle because I had taught other people to do that and they had perfected it so well, and then my job had become that of a cheerleader. Just make sure company culture is great, everyone feels appreciated. You show up for a random birthday, a sweeper is in a pharmacy somewhere in Ginger, you show up with a gift, you know their name. That was my job, to just make sure people felt appreciated and important and valued. Of course, they don't know that you don't know shit. They just think you're the boss, you started this stuff. But you hire the best people, like the kid who runs that multi-million-dollar business. I got him straight out of school. And just made sure I took him mountaineering. He saw me at my most vulnerable points. Cedric, he probably was in your year. Yeah. He saw me at my most vulnerable. Like if you take someone into the mountains, there's no pretense. They'll see you scared, they'll see you happy, they'll see you. Then you go out to the bar sometimes, get wasted, and they just see you at your most human way. So that takes away the fear. You close that power distance to almost zero. So then your job, teach him the technical side, introduce him to the big boys in the industry, and then get out of the way. In a short time, those people render you redundant. I was pretty much useless. I was like the coffee guy in Guardian. I would pass the coffee and then sign checks and look like the serious founder, but really, my job was to make sure I hire the best people, teach them, and then forget. Now I find myself in a situation where I may consider getting back into that. I don't know. But I have to relearn a lot of that stuff. But yeah, hire the best people, teach them. Vulnerability is a very important teaching tool. I see most founders think that I have to put on certain airs of seriousness. Boss has come in. Everyone is panicking. That's crap. I'm telling you the truth. Allow yourself to be human. And these guys will buy in.
Wow, that's a wonderful insight. Now, my next question is actually about the exit, and I'll frame it based on what you just said about looking for funds.
The Ferrari.
Look for funds when you already are making good money, otherwise they will see the blood. So, we don't know how much you actually received from the exit, so that is closed. We wouldn't want to ask that unless you want to tell us, but my question is, a lot of things have been done out of necessity. Was the exit something out of necessity or something you had already pre-planned? You were like, you know what, I'm a genius, I'll run this for these few years, it will be, good looking, I'll have my exit, and here I am, a free man, a millionaire. Is this what you had in mind, or the exit was by necessity?
Let me tell you something. When you take an investor's money, you've signed up for an exit. You just have to make sure the terms of that exit are either dictated by you or them, depending on at what point you raised that money. Does it make sense? If I control your board, I control you. So if you raise your capital when there's blood in the water, you will sign any kind of agreement because you want to save the company. I had more than 100 employees that relied on me. So what if a guy says, I want majority of your company, when he's going to save more than 100 jobs and also allow you to, if things work, live with $1 million or 2 or 3 or God knows what. Most guys run huge companies here, but they've never seen $1 million of their own money. Believe me. So even not that the reason I got into business was monetary reasons, I don't really get excited by money. Like, truthfully, like I told you, my grandmother's lessons were different. So my outcomes in life, very few of what I celebrate are money related. But yeah, we got a decent exit. That exit was voted the best exit in East Africa by the East Africa Venture Capital Association. That's quite something. It's the first time that had happened for a Ugandan company. So I take great pride in that, and most especially I celebrate my colleagues who made it happen. Like I've told you, I took the credit, they did the work. But when you're signing up to take money from investors, you need to understand that you, the individual, are different from the company. These companies exist for two things: make money while solving a society need. I come from a public health background. I used to read articles in the University of Washington that said, by some estimates, some 30% of medicines in sub-Saharan Africa were counterfeit. So I'm like, I could sit here, graduate near top of my class or somewhere there, do my PhD, and then publish a lot of these articles in air-conditioned offices in the West and, feel good, be celebrated by my peers. or I could go back and roll my sleeves and do something about it. So I came back, started this company. It serves more than 2 million people, prescriptions now, I believe, a year. Good quality medicines. You put in place very nice structures for checking quality and making sure you get meds from good sources. That's a win. But at the end of the day, if you live with some money and like more than 200 people employed, supporting their families, I think that's a win. So yes, you're going to sign up to take people's money. Just know you're signing up. There's tag along and drag along clauses in that contract. If you find a deal that works for all of you, they are under obligation to take it. If they find a deal that's good for all of you, you're under obligation to take it. Now, it would have been nice, to be honest, to exit this company via the stock exchange and give the customers who made it work a chance to buy into it. But the capital structure in Uganda is not like it is in the West. I wish I could just walk to NSSF and say, guys, at the time I exited, it was a really decent exit. At the time I exited, if NSSF had given me, say, $5 million to continue building this company, build its brand presence, get it all over the country, you can be sure that by 2027, I would have exited this company on the Ugandan Stock Exchange at a valuation of, say, $50 million. But guess what? All this value is going to be created and the owners of capital will take it. You understand? Founding team is not there, all that stuff. Will you be salty about it? Maybe. Am I? No, I celebrate that. I feel like, it is just what it is. You learn to play the game. Next time you build better. I hope now the guys in the audience will understand that and build better and smarter. And then the people who own capital, instead of sinking it in concrete, they should be able to understand that you can actually sink some of this money in shares in an entrepreneur's company, and then they grow it and exit it like Natif did. You get your millions of dollars and go and build your concrete behemoths that you want. You understand? So to the extent that such an exit made news and was able to jolt people into consciousness and be like, oh, you can actually do this in Uganda, I think it's a good thing. And I'm glad it happened when it happened. Yeah, we live, we learn, we build again, and yeah.
Okay, you answered another secondary question of whether you regret the exit or not. Turns out you don't.
No, I don't. I sleep very well at night.
Okay, I have two more last questions, and the Q&A will be open to the audience. So my second last question is, currently, what is Natif looking at? Because I understand you have all the money you can spend.
No, I wish I did. I don't.
Well, my question is, I was trying to understand where you currently, and I noticed, actually, for those of you who are not aware and are from his school, Yango, yeah, he made a donation, a charity donation to Yango of about $500 million Uganda shillings.
I mean, it's common sense. You have to. If that school hadn't paid my fees, I wouldn't be here. I would be selling weed in Seta. You guys, you have to. No, seriously. So it's a commitment. Like we'll pay that money over the period, and it excites me to see other kids benefit from that, because you pay it forward, and we've done it for what? Maybe 10 years now. From the time I earned my first salary, I think, we started paying fees for those students in Namyango. Some are architects, some are doctors, some are civil engineers, some are professors now. And it makes me so happy. Some don't know. And it's most actually don't know. And it's beautiful. It's called paying it forward. Always find a way to pay it forward. It's why we work, no? To improve the circumstances of other people. I don't understand why people, I don't even know why you bring that up. I don't know why people...
It's hard to know that we have a philanthropist.
No. It's common sense, guys. You have to invest in a society from which you're going to get human resource to build your next enterprise. It's also selfish. So
yeah, I mean, as the philanthropy work, Natif, what currently are you looking into? Back to business? Also, what kind of businesses would you be looking at? What are you interested in? In investing in more healthcare startups? Because we are here.
I'm actually going to come and check you guys out. I promise. These days I've taken on activism and knowledge generation and the defense of ideas. I founded an organization called Public Square. Public Square is a poor man's think tank. That's what we call it. It just collects a bunch of young, even old people, and just talk about the issues that affect our society, ranging from public accountability. I think some of you guys saw the work we did in the coffee expose. Then we sparked the parliamentary exhibition that got me a death threat from the Speaker of Parliament. Bless her soul. We've done a lot of work around the rights of the Balalo, the Banyara, and we try and a lot of people in the investment circles would say we are sector agnostic. So anywhere we see injustices, we'll be there. So we work in the space of public accountability. We work in the space of climate change and energy transition. We work in the space of entrepreneurship and innovation, which is why we're here. And we work in the civic awareness space. So we'll push campaigns on issues like, freedom. We'll oppose things like the Anti-Homosexuality Act because we think they fundamentally are against individual freedoms. We'll fight for people's rights to be who they want to be. We'll fight for economic freedoms, all that stuff. So we use the media support that we've got and the clout and connections that God has allowed us to have to be able to shine a light on communities that we feel not getting a fair shake of the stick. Everyone who has been handed a shorter end of that stick is going to be our partner. And so we hope that we exist in a fairer society, and Public Square will do that. But fundamentally, we are a think tank. We generate knowledge, we defend ideas, we are very non-partisan. And we push initiatives that we think will build our society. Someone should have told me activism is very expensive. For now, we are self-funded. I don't know for how long, but in case you're wondering where that money is going, it's going into this stuff. But also at heart, I'm a businessman. We think that, and I love the outdoors, so I have a business partner of mine called Sarah. She's German, she's amazing. We started a company called Rustic Expeditions. I don't know if this counts as an advert, I hope not. So we want to, because we think that Uganda's tourism potential is untapped. A lot of people on X will wonder whether there's a part of Uganda I haven't been to. And frankly, I also don't know. if there is a part of Uganda I haven't been to, but a lot of these places I go to, I get angry at how little we are tapping the potential in the tourism space. Even when at times the tourism industry will contribute like 6% of our GDP. You look at countries like Rwanda punching above their weight and they have nothing to show. I mean that most sincerely. And, you know, they've hacked it and they're making some decent money out of it. Mad respect to them. And Uganda, with all its abundance, is not doing much. So we decided to build a vertically integrated company. We'll build the best mountain lodges. We'll build the best fishing lodges. We'll build Airbnbs here that look like hotels so that a lot of you guys can have a good time. We want people to come in here and have the hotel experience while also enjoying the experience of being in a Ugandan home. You want a Ugandan traditional dish cooked in a hotel setting, but in a home we've got you. So we want to build like 10 houses, Muyenga, Chanja, God knows what, Bwindi. In all these strange parks, you walk in there and you find a house that looks like it's from Hollywood, but it's in Uganda and you can enjoy it. So we want to do that. We've started on well. We're also trying to work with some Dutch friends of ours to start a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. Knock on wood, that will come through. And I have a business partner friend of mine called Alex Ponton. You probably know him. We've slowed down a bit, but we want to work on a venture studio. That also marries very well with that arm of Public Square that wants to look at entrepreneurship and innovation. So then we can hopefully convince a lot of people, government, private players with capital to throw it to young companies and, you know, see what comes out of that. I want to mentor people a lot like what you guys do. I think you don't get enough flowers for the kind of work Startup does. And yeah, then I've been toying with the idea of getting back into pharma, but I already have investors. Some Arab friends of mine already put $500,000 on the table and say, you know what, let's run it back. I don't know about that. We'll see. My non-compete ends, I think, at the end of May or June. At the end of May, I think. So I'll take a hike somewhere in the mountains and think about it and then come back. So if you see me back in the pharma space, it will be because that hike said, you know, there's unfinished business. But for now, it's not really my priority. But I still think I have some juice in the tank. Yeah. And really investing in small businesses, helping them. That's where I put most of my time, activism and helping young entrepreneurs come through. Yeah, it's that's what I'm up to. Knock on wood, things work.
You seem to have now so many pots.
Maybe I forgot I want to go back and finish my PhD. Just so I can tell my daughter I'm not a school dropout.
Okay. So, in the interest of time, I think my questions are done. My last question was whether or not you regretted the exit and whether it's an option you would encourage for most startups.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Remember, just give me a minute to speak about this. Remember that example I gave you of a guy who builds a company and he thinks his success is having a 4-bedroom house in Nigeria, a second-hand Japanese car, and a child that goes to Kampala parents, and money to get a house for side chick? I honestly think we need to build for exits. Oftentimes we think we're building our companies to bequeath them to our kids, which is just unnecessary pressure on these children. My daughter today wants to be a photographer. The other day she wants to be a musician. The other day she wants to be a surgeon. I can't tell her, come and run a pharmacy. It's unfair. So let's build companies, grow them, and really, like you asked me to talk about how to make your first million. It's easy. I'll use an example of a retail pharmacy. How do you become a millionaire in a retail pharmacy? Okay. Put together like maybe 150, 200 million shillings. Find a very good location. Okay. Set up, beautify the place, brand, make some social media noise. Location again is the name of the game. Okay. 6 months in, if the location is great, that pharmacy should be able to make money that sustains itself, that pays all its costs. Okay. Now, for the sake of the numbers, let's say you're making 50 million shillings a month in sales. Okay. I am going to use roughly without giving you the actual exit multiple, but that I had in Guardian. But if you say I'm making 50 million shillings every month in sales, at the end of the year, that's 600 million shillings. Using a close estimate to my Guardian exit, do you know what the value of that company is going to be? It's going to be 2.5 times 600 million. So how much is that? 1.3 billion. If you have 3 of those, you're a millionaire. You're running $1 million company. You understand? So now look around how much people buy pharmacies, healthcare businesses at. There's something we call EBITDA. You probably know what that is. They will get your EBITDA and put 8x on it. So an 8x multiple on it. So assuming you're making 100 million shillings from a pharmacy a month, so your take home is probably 25 million. At the end of the year, 25 million times 12 is how much? 300 million. 8x that is how much? 2.4 billion. Market rate in healthcare, the value of that company is 2.4 billion shillings. Does the math seem simple? Yeah? Because it is. So we have a lot of potential millionaires in dollars who do not know how to build. So now if one store makes you a 2.5 billion shilling company using market rate, just go Google healthcare multiples on EBITDA. It's 8x for the most part. So then if you go and build 10 of those, and now instead of 2.5 billion, you have 25 billion. No. Instead of having 300 million at the end of the year, you have 3 billion. 8x that. 24 billion. How much is that in dollars? $6 million. You have $6 million in value. But do you think the guys who have those 10 pharmacies have $6 million in their accounts? Do you think they even see $200,000 in their own private pockets at any one time? Why do you think? Because we are in constant push. I need to open the next pharmacy. I need to open the next thing. I need to open you're forever one payment away from poverty. You understand? But you're sitting on so much value. So at that point, when you get proof of concept, go and get other people's money, bring them under the umbrella, share some equity, build in peace. So when you get to a certain level, if I now make, instead of 10 of those stores, I have 100, how much money do I have in terms of what's my value? So imagine each of them gives you 300 million shillings every year. You have 100 of those. How much is that? 30 billion. 30 billion. 8x multiple on 30 billion is 240 billion. How many companies are that cough out that profit at the end of the year? Even the ones that are on the stock exchange. How many do you know? Almost none. Now layer technology and put online on it. Get a guy who is running virtual clinics, let him plug into your system. Get a guy who is running deliveries, Pink Tie, and all those guys. Let them plug into your system. Do you see how you're building a behemoth? But as an individual, you cannot build it alone because you do not have that kind of capital. You may have a brilliant idea that makes money, but scaling it to that level is going to require some sort of outside capital. Be open to taking that. And that's how you build. I swear to God, it sounds like magic, but it's basic 1, 2, 3. You're quiet.
I'm quiet because he have satisfied. I'm now opening. I think we can give him a applause of appreciation. Now the Q&A is open to the audience. I think we can do gender balance, have 5 or 3 questions depending on time. Okay, ready.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Natif.
I can stand. It doesn't change much.
Yeah, my name is Elvis Omoit.
Hi, Elvis.
Yeah, so I work with a startup studio called Rutico. We
Yes.
build businesses within regenerative agriculture.
So the math I did, you're familiar with.
Yeah, it's really mind-opening math. Yeah. So my question is, as a serial entrepreneur, what would attract you to build another business that is commercially viable, scalable, and impactful from scratch?
Certainly not money. It will be, I need to see that there's a problem that needs to be solved, and it can be solved at scale. So, oftentimes, and investors will tell you this, they invest in businesses that are working at a tiny level, but then they show that they can scale. So that's where the value is. Now I need to find a problem that will keep me up at night. Because entrepreneurship, honestly, you guys, is very difficult. It's the most emotionally debilitating thing I have ever done. And I almost died on Mount Stanley. That experience was more pleasant than entrepreneurship. So if you're going to go in there and build, the problem must be on your heart. You can't just build for the money. You're going to lose it. Build because you love what you do. You're passionate about it. Don't build because, oh, I'm broke, I need to make it. I need to solve my poverty problem. You're going to burn out. You will get to a point where you need to go on, but then the Yemfachi comes in. You always have that Yemfachi. Now, how you overcome it is passion. You have a dream that's bigger than yourself. So if you have a dream that you're not willing to fail at, you're ready to be an entrepreneur. Now, I am building together with Sarah in the travel space because we are travel junkies. We love the outdoors, we love this stuff, we are angry when we see things not working a certain way. So we're like, okay, we might as well do something about it. And we love it. You understand? We're passionate about the outdoors, the unbuilt environment, and all that stuff. I see opportunities in agriculture, I see opportunities in all this stuff, but it's not where my passion is. I was passionate about coffee, which is why I put my life at risk and went and did that investigation, put my own money and whatever, and risked to piss off many people because I knew back there in Mbale, we grew up on coffee money. People harvest coffee, go and sell and pay fees and buy salt and all that stuff. It's personal. So if I'm going to build again, it has to be really personal. It shouldn't be because I'm looking for a paycheck.
Okay. Hi, Natif. My name is
Hi.
Noah.
Hi, Noah.
Thank you very much for the story. I think it's quite inspirational, and if it's one thing that I picked up from what you said, it's that the destination creates the avenue. So
Yes.
there's no specific way of you have to go this way, but rather knowing the destination, it creates the way. If I want to ask you two things, from your word, you said that if you put your mind into it, you won't fail. But if success was a guarantee, or if you knew you didn't fail, what problem would you solve? That's one. Then the second one is, if it's one word that you want these founders to take away today, what would it be? Thank you.
Thanks. Noah, you guys should have prepared me for these questions. Yes, what you said, the opening statement makes a lot of sense. And, you know, if you listen to a lot of those old speeches by Steve Jobs, he said the dots connect backwards. He gave a certain speech, I think, at Stanford, where he said the dots connect backwards. For me, listening to that speech, it didn't make sense. I was in grad school at the time. Like, you have to see where you're going. But I'm telling you the truth. I could be walking to you, Noah, and that's my journey as an entrepreneur. And I will go to Kalerwe. I'll go to Ntinda. I will meander all that way. Not that I don't know where you are, but the journey leads me in all sorts of directions, jumping obstacles and all that stuff until I end up to you. A lot like mountaineering. Now, which problem would I solve if I knew success was guaranteed? Really, the problem of cancer for me. I have a background in cancer care. I no longer practice, but I used to be a cancer pharmacist. And it broke my heart every day looking at kids die. I had PTSD working in the Cancer Institute, and that's why I didn't go back after my training. I would work, sorry, this is personal and gets me sometimes rather emotional. I'd work Monday to Monday for like 3 weeks, and then I allow myself one weekend to just drive to the farthest part of Uganda that 2 fuel tanks would take me. And I would have books and the camera, and that's how I ended up seeing all parts of Uganda. I would just turn the car and boom. Now, on that Friday before my trip, I would go to, we had a ward called the Lymphoma Treatment Center. Now it was broken down to allow for the Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center building. If you've been to the Cancer Institute, it's there. But if you go back and look for the Lymphoma Treatment Center at Cancer Institute, it was a tiny thing, barely twice this, that took, capacity was 40, but it would accommodate like 200 patients. A doctor would jump over patients on the floor to see the ones on the bed, and these patients on the floor, some of them would have obliterated bone marrows, meaning no immune system was functional, and they are not in isolation. And so you get to a bed, you have a kid here, you're playing rock, paper, scissors. He looks healthy. You go for your trip, and on Monday morning, you come back and you find the bed is empty. That kid has died. And it would break my heart so much. Up to today, I think about those kids. I remember their names. I remember their smiles. I remember how they hated to lose at rock, paper, scissors. Sometimes I would cheat. And then they learned how to cheat. And they would beat me at the cheating game. And, you know, it was pleasant until it wasn't. So if I could solve that problem, I think, yeah. Then the one word, I think a common theme in my story and most entrepreneurs' stories is resilience. In Uganda, the chances that your business is going to fail by year 5 are worse than the odds of glioblastoma, which is the most virulent cancer that you can find. So less than 2% of you guys will have your businesses functional after year 5. That you guys actually think this is a good space to be is absurd. But you're here.
Yeah.
Welcome. You have to be resilient. Like the word is resilience, even in the face of insane obstacles. Funders, investors come around and tell you, oh man, we understand. They do not understand. They come with pessimism in a world that requires massive optimism. So when you get them on board, remember that this guy's knowledge of business may not extend beyond the Excel sheet, but he has the molar. And no one makes money when they are stupid. So understand that. Bring your optimism, they bring their pessimism, balance it out, but be resilient. Another question?
Any other question?
Thank you, Natif.
After your question.
My name is David Okwi.
David Okwi?
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm a software developer and
The cool guys.
and I'm also building a travel tech company called Gleaned Safari.
Called what?
Gleaned Safari.
Oh, nice.
It's a marketplace for safaris across Africa. First, I have two questions. The first one being, I see that you're now a political activist.
No. That word there is the difference between a drone and me walking back home. I'm not a political activist. I want to think about myself as an activist around different areas, politics being one of them.
One of them. And yet you're an entrepreneur at the same time.
Yes.
How are you able to stay optimistic in a space that is naturally toxic, to say the least?
Yeah.
Yes. And then the second question is, what advice would you give to somebody building a product in a fairly nascent industry? Like tech in this space is quite nascent and it's currently slow and taking its time and all that. How are you able to build products that are going to scale probably in a few years? The market hasn't really caught up yet, but yet you have to do it.
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm an activist is because I faced so much pain as an entrepreneur. The pharmaceutical industry is a mafia industry. By the time I left, I had become like the godfather. But to get there, you had to fight. I smile and laugh a lot. I'm easygoing, but I have a steady heart. I don't celebrate that. Those lessons and scars I got from entrepreneurship made me so pessimistic about the world in which we exist. Now, activism allows me to recapture the optimism that comes with being a human. Things are tough, you have to believe they're going to get better. And I got in there because we don't have time for me to tell you that story, but I got in there because I felt like other people shouldn't suffer like I did. Someone should be able to stand up to NSSF and say, you know what? Every time you wait to throw money at companies, largely foreign-owned companies, not that it's bad, at the IPO stage, you rob entrepreneurs here of value. Okay? Someone has to tell them with the credibility that comes from saying, I have built a multi-million-dollar business. I could potentially have built a multi-$100 million business if someone had told you this and you had listened. So if someone is not willing to get in there and mix it in a toxic environment, we shall never have a clean environment. You're able to go back and use the bathroom at your home comfortably, go and sleep in a nice bed comfortably. But plumbers have to get messy so that you can enjoy that comfort. So consider me the plumber. And I'm very happy to take on that mantle. I'm very happy to take the risk. I told you, as we were starting, my appreciation of risk, my appetite for risk is probably much more than most people's. So I'm happy to take that for a chance to have a better country for all of us, and that means engaging all sides of the political divide in a non-partisan manner and get wins for entrepreneurs. So yeah, that's why I do what I do, and I love it. I love it. Then the other question you asked was about, I'll answer from a first mover advantage perspective. I don't know that if you gave me $50,000 now, I can rebuild a Guardian. It's impossible. But back then, there were very few players, much less players who knew that, pharmacies can also be areas of entertainment. They don't have to be dreary looking places like banks. Used to be timber and then glass, and then you serve the people. So we came in and said, we're going to introduce 3D branding because we saw it in Boston. We're going to use gypsum boards, a lot of lights and all this stuff. We're going to deliver medicines. We're going to run, believe me, we're the first pharmacy to do 24-hour service. We're the first pharmacy to deliver medicines and all that stuff. Innovation, okay? That got the people on the south side of Kampala, I think Muyenga, Buziga, Kansanga, Munyonyo, to embrace us. Innovation. We're no longer at the cutting edge of innovation, but believe me, we're coming back. I keep saying we're coming back. I always root for Guardian. And now your issue is you're building in a space that has been looking for innovation. Like my brother Amos says, he ended up in tourism because he hadn't studied. And, tourism offered him a job as a guide, as what. But smart guy, hustler, he made it. Now tourism has got to a point where it needs people who have gone to school also to come and play and clean up the industry, make it better, bring innovation to it. So if you are at the cutting edge of that, I think I applaud you. I look forward to time when someone builds Uganda's version of booking.com. So every guy who runs a lodge can come and list on your platform and people buy. And I'm rooting for you. And I'll show you there's some organizations that would actually give you money to build even better. So let's have a conversation after. He had a question.
Yes, my name is Martin Bogwa.
Yes, Martin.
Yeah, mine is...
We've met quite a bit.
Oh, sure.
Very cool lad.
My first question would be, apart from your most favorite drink, what is your second favorite drink?
I don't know what you think my favorite drink is.
The Nile, of course.
No. I've been off beer for 90 days now. You can see my tummy is going.
Wow. It's wonderful. And the second...
I'm now taking coffee. So there's your answer.
Coffee. Oh, wonderful. And then second is, I appreciate your work towards philanthropy and education. And it's a thing that I do work on. I think you're aware of Mother Kevin.
Yes.
Founder of Mabunga and very many non-profits.
Yes.
Like, what keeps you moving? Because you find at times, working in these institutions, like I do teach, and there are things that we want to improve. And I think my calling right now in life is decentralizing education and also open sourcing education for girls and
Oh, nice.
looking at STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and maths. How could someone work around that kind of area, or what could one do to to keep moving, because it's very tough, and I like to do things that make meaning, and I think we share that same thing. It's not
Yes.
just about the money. What would you give? What kind of advice would you give also someone sort of
Yeah, my brother, if first to answer your question, my drink is coffee. When I was in grad school, and coffee treats me so bad, it gives me palpitations and all that stuff. And the next day I'm back on it. It's an addiction. It's a very abusive relationship. But I love coffee. After here, I'll probably have another cup, and I'll go with palpitations, and tomorrow I'll wake up again and have more coffee. So more power to the black gold. Now on your question, this sounds like a cliche, but for a lot of people, if things were easy, they wouldn't do them. If they were easy, they would be crowded. Personally, if building something is easy, I'll get bored. I have so much difficulty maintaining concentration on tasks that I would consider mundane. The tougher the task, the more exciting. I love waking up and proving myself right. That, you beat me yesterday, tomorrow I'm going to beat you. And I wake up with that determination to beat a challenge. So what you're working on, education, I told you our dad was a teacher. He still is alive, probably. What time is it now? He's probably in Setown drinking Bell beer and chilling. He's 84. He comes from that stock of civil servants that believed education was the greatest equalizer. Unfortunately, in our society today, the people who have access to education, great education, are also the ones that have access to power. They're the ones that have access to the best resources. They're the ones whose children are in that space. So education as an equalizer is kind of reducing its appeal. But still, there's almost no other equalizer like education. These kids might have the opportunities. They might come into Namiriango, SMARC, and all these fancy schools because their fathers made a phone call. But they're going to sit on the same desk with you, and you'll become friends, and they'll pull you up as well. So in that regard, more power to it. Now, in the direction of girl education, I'll tell you something. It's going to break a lot of you people's hearts, but I'm glad you're building in that space, and I would want to hear more about what you're doing. How many of you have been to Karamoja region? Yeah, like 6 people. First, you have to agree with me, it's more beautiful than school taught us. It's probably the most beautiful part of Uganda. 2, it has so much poverty, disease, and pain. Those guys exist like, the gods forsook them. One time I went to climb Mount Moroto and came out on the other side, Tapes region. Ended up in a parish, and this is an education thing for you. There were Catholic priests from South America that were running an education fund where they would take back young girls that had escaped from child marriages and take them back to school. So these are 12, 13, 14-year-olds that were given away as 4th, 5th, 7th wives to a guy, a wealthy guy. And you know what they are calling wealth? The guy has 4 malnourished cows. He's marrying a 12-year-old, making her suffer. And so they would pick them up and take them to these schools. I had a mountain high. I was super excited. At dinner, I just ended up crying. And that problem has stayed on my mind for so long. It's now what, maybe 5 years later. I still think about it. I occasionally write them a check, but it's not enough. I hope that more people get into girl child education. Because when you educate a girl child, I'm speaking as a girl daddy. When you educate a girl child, I think the benefits are more than what you get from educating a boy child, to be honest. So I encourage everyone to get into girl child education. Pay particular attention to Karamoja, the problem of child brides and those kids who are escaping from child marriages. Go and sponsor 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. It doesn't cost much. It's going to cost you like maybe 500,000 shillings a year. But it's going to change your life. Support this man's hustle. Support his business. It's going to allow you to sleep better at night if nothing else does. I tell you. But the impact you're going to create is going to be amazing, and it's going to last for decades. You may not directly benefit from it, but your fellow citizen will, their children will, their grandchildren will. And it's important. Without education, I would not be having this conversation with you. I told you I would be in Seta selling weed, a different kind of drugs. Some of the people I used to sell weed to or with have since died. Too much alcohol, killed trying to steal a phone, but died of malaria or HIV, a mix of both, of all those. You know, some are still there. We are trying to rehabilitate them. But it's painful. But I'm the one who got that fortune of going to study. And the school I studied from, Namiango College, was 2 kilometers from their society. I imagine how much 2 kilometers have separated us from them. It's incredible. That's education. And I'm able to sit down and talk to the powers that be that run this country and tell them, guys, you're screwing us over, or you're doing a good job here, you're doing that there, because of education. Without it, I would be one of those people that they bribe with a bar of soap and they expect a vote so they can go and steal some more. Let's not consign our citizens to that existence. Let's support their education. Here's a question. So many questions today. You guys are paying attention.
Thank you very much.
Either I've made you sad or...
So thank you very much, Natif, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Your story is really very, very touching.
Those are the good parts. There are some nasty parts.
Yes, so my name is Kayanja Nicholas.
Hi, Nicholas. I've seen you several times.
Yes, we have met.
Yes.
So I represent a startup called Happy Brands.
Yes.
We help leverage technology and talent to impact brand performance, especially for startups.
Yes.
So my question is, you mentioned something about working with a partner of yours to do a venture studio.
Yes, Alex Ponton.
Yes.
He's a very brilliant Ugandan. We claim him. He used to be Canadian.
Yes. So I'm just curious, what are the gaps you are seeing in that space, and what areas of collaboration would you be looking into?
Yeah. How many entrepreneurs do you think get a chance to sit down with someone who has been through the trenches, built, and come out on the other side, and just have a conversation from a vulnerable perspective, and just say, this is how you build, this is how you fail, these are the lessons, these are the wins, these are the losses. Very few, right? And oftentimes, those businesses fail not because the idea is bad. Sometimes it's something as simple as corporate governance failures, not knowing your books very well, not knowing when and how to raise capital, not knowing how to set your strategy and get to it, not knowing how to hire. Okay? So we're going to take a lot of companies, both from idea stage and those that have made some money, put them together, pair them with a lot of founders that we think have built. This man will probably get him as a mentor. Just get them in one place, teach them, mentor them, pair them with people, teach them how to build the simple areas of building a business. If I'd had these conversations in 2014, 2015, I would have built differently. I didn't. I boxed my way through. Remember that example I used of going to Noah via, he's in this room, but I'm approaching him via Tinder. So it saves a lot. You don't have to reinvent the wheel because someone has made the mistakes you've made. You're hopefully going to make less of them. So we need more people to be able to do that, to teach that. It's like teaching you how to use the abacus, but it's when you're taking a calculus class. But it's important. Then another thing is a lot of the stuff that you guys do at Startup is try and pair investors with these founders. Then we hopefully will take away the weight of the initial problems that come with accounting, legal, all that stuff from you, handle it in-house, and then free you, the entrepreneur, to just go and get product market fit and push your product improvement until you get the best version of your product. We invest a bit of money, you grow, pair you with investors, we get out, get our loot, go back, use it to build other people. So we want to run what you call a conveyor belt of, I was going to say talent, of businesses that hopefully will live beyond the 5-year mark. Are they all going to be successful? Absolutely not. But surely they shouldn't, the failure rate shouldn't be 2% at the 5-year mark. We should have more than that. And that's how we hope to judge our success. And knock on wood, that will work. And I think a guy who is in branding is important. A lot of business value is built on how you frame the narrative. Teaching entrepreneurs how to talk about their businesses is important. Look, I can come and tell you about, if I'm selling pharmaceuticals, I can come and say, you know what, my day job, I sell Viagra and Durex. Okay? Or I sell medicine. People pay me, make a profit, and we go. Another one will say, you know what, I'm solving a public health need. East Africa has at least 30% in some medicines are counterfeit. I am building a supply chain that is going to cut out counterfeits and bring these products to the people at affordable prices in a timely manner, consistently, served by the best trained human resource. Guess who you're going to invest in? The guy who is solving a problem. But really, he's selling medicine, like the other guy who told you he sells medicine. But this guy makes you feel good about your investment. You're not investing because you're Mother Teresa. You're investing because you want a return. But you want to feel good at your golf course when you're talking to your friends. You know, my buddy there is in a Greek. I am solving African hunger. But you've told a guy you need 20% return on your dollar every year. And that's baseline. Those are the details. So it's all branding. Polish up that toad and sell the heck out of it. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I've answered you. Yes, Michael.
Just two more for the road. Yeah? My name is Michael. Semi-retired journalist and businessman.
I remember you did my Pakasa story back in the days when I was still hustling.
Yes.
Do you remember it?
Yes, I do very well.
Yeah.
Now, just two things. One, you talked
Have I lived up to the promises I made?
To a great extent, you actually have.
Where have I failed? I want to redo it. I don't want to disappoint you. Guys, this guy did a story on me. You know, when you're telling a journalist, we're going to do this, we're going to build this way, we're going to get out at this point, and he's looking at you like, dude. I don't remember, but years ago.
It's about 2017.
Yeah. Yeah, this is 7 years ago. And now I'm curious as to whether we've lived up to it.
To a very good extent, you have. Actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now, just two things. One, you talked about building with exit in mind, or exit.
Inevitably, yes.
What is there an ideal time from your experience to exit? And are there hints, are there pointers you can see that, you know what, maybe it's time in the next 6 months or so I should be done with this, or tomorrow, or... That's the first question. The second one, there's been a whole tech trend around startups. Take this, take that, take the other.
Yeah, some of us are dinosaurs. We don't understand that.
So, my little experience around startups, which is not so little actually, probably about 10 years.
Yes, of course, I was going to correct you.
Has gotten me to a place where I'm thinking, when should the focus be on the tech in the startup? And when should the focus be on the actual product or service? I don't know, is there a way you can help most of us in this audience understand like that separation? When does it occur to you that someone is over being taken up by the tech side and they're actually losing the business? And they need to come back to the business. Just throw some light on that from your experience.
Yes. When do you know it's time to exit? As entrepreneurs, we have that fire in the belly. You feel it. You just feel it. And let me tell you something. When you're building and you have a challenge of money, you always exist believing my problem is I get money like this, I'm done. Then you get money in form of investment and realize, oh, you have bigger problems than money. Then you solve that. And then you get to a point where you have trained people. So when people invest in your company, the first thing you need to do is protect them from a key personnel risk. Render yourself useless to your company. And the way you do that is by hiring talent, oftentimes that's even smarter than you, they just haven't had the opportunity to enter the business that you're in. Hire them, train them, support them, cheerlead, get out of the way. So if those guys can replicate what your vision is with very little of your input, quite frankly, you're ready to leave. You understand? Then it becomes about how much more money do you want to get. And so if your motivation is not just money, it's disingenuous to wake up every morning to go and work, build a company that makes money, and then later claim my motivation isn't money. Of course, it's there. But if your motivation isn't just money, then really you should be able to step aside. An exit can mean I'm no longer involved in the company, other people are running it, I'm just collecting my dividends. That's also an exit. It doesn't have to necessarily be you've sold the bloody thing. But for me, it's important that I cut clean. I'm like, I've solved the problem I wanted to solve. It's going to be solved. I know Guardian is going to thrive. It is thriving without me. It's making more money than it made when I was still there. It's growing. So that for me is exciting, because fundamentally my problem was I need to reach as many people as possible with the best quality medicines at an affordable price. And the people that I've mentored are doing a better job than me of achieving that vision. So my presence there might even be a hindrance, because they're going to keep questioning themselves. Hey, I need to go back to the Godfather and ask, am I doing the right thing? No. Get out of the way, go do other things, go do hike, go do whatever. So when you build your business in such a way, you put controls in place, you have financing, you have people in place that can run with your vision, you're ready to go on to other things. The issue of tech, I don't know, we oftentimes diss tech and say, these guys have huge valuations on the Excel sheet, but they don't have EBITDA. But like I told you, people who invest money, make money and invest it, are not stupid. There's value in employing tech in any business. If Guardian had had embraced tech earlier on, it would be a much bigger entity now. Now it's coming in and embracing tech through a merger with MyDawa and all that stuff. And I think it's going to be another merger that's coming up that's going to shock and excite you people. It's going to be an even bigger entity. Now, sometimes the great can be the enemy of the good. And oftentimes we'll spend a lot of money trying to perfect, to do excellent, bring bells and whistles technology when all you really need is find your border to deliver that medicine the other side. A guy wants to build a Jumia platform to be able to make that happen. You understand? And they sink a lot of money, but really, fundamentally, what you need is to deliver a product. So people who sink a lot of money in tech are just trying to compensate, to fix inefficiencies, but then sometimes they go overboard and try to compensate for their lack of imagination. It's both a good thing and bad thing. If you do not have enough money, don't try and build a delivery platform. Concentrate on your niche. I sell medicine. Let me go and look for companies that have invested in delivering products. Let me partner with them, share some margin, and do it cheaper. When I get the capacity to be able to do it sustainably and continue doing my core business, then I can invest in tech, in these bells and whistles things, to be able to scale. You understand? Amazon is not the one that delivers your package to your doorstep. Is it? Is it? No. But it has the resources to be able to eat the lunch of UPS, FedEx, and all those guys. But they concentrate on their core business and then, grow. Hopefully with time they get those resources that will allow them to do what? To build a bells and whistles kind of business. It's a resource kind of allocation thing, play. So as an entrepreneur, you need to be cognizant of that. Okay, one more question?
One last question.
Two? Okay, let's do two.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mongoy Edward Frederick, and I'm a Form 6 Vakist.
Hi.
I'm a co-founder of a startup called School Bike. Basically,
Wow.
Students with bikes for transporting them to and from school, which is to do with affordability and safety while commuting to school. So my questions are first, Tony, what's success to you? What do you call success as an individual? And then secondly, what has kept you going and what keeps you running? Because usually as entrepreneurs, there are times you feel like giving up, feel like quitting, and all that. What has kept you going? And lastly, this might seem a little bit personal, but what are the things you wish you knew when you were 20? Yeah, thank you.
Wish I could dodge that other question. I'm really glad that we have a Form 6 Vakist starting a company. You know how amazing that is? And he can stand up and ask such questions.
Even that one we want to dodge.
Success. You know, when we are living this life, we don't go back every day and say, let me check the scorecard. Again, a lot of things make sense when we are looking back. Oftentimes also our measurement of success is premised on that. You look back and you're like, oh wow, I had a fantastic ride. But really, waiting for things to make sense in retrospect is also a very miserable way of existing. So, in a very frustrating world of entrepreneurship, I tell my friends, and I wish someone had told me this earlier, find small pockets of joy in the everyday things that you do and celebrate those. Call that success. You will be happier. It's, you know, everyone wants to talk about hitting a home run. Oh, I'm wearing a Mariners jersey. Go Mariners. If you're familiar with baseball. Oftentimes people will go like, oh, I hit a home run. Those are the ones they celebrate. In soccer, strikers get the most name recognition because they stick the ball in the back of the net. But there are guys in the engine room. There are defenders that put it all on the line so the other team doesn't score. There are midfielders who feed them the ball. How do those guys define success in the grand scheme of things when the other guy is running away to a corner flag celebrating? Why do they celebrate? They celebrate because they put a brick. You understand? So as an entrepreneur, you get up every day to put a brick to this humongous structure whose form and shape you don't even know. But that brick has stuck. Go home and celebrate that. That's success. So in those small pockets of joy is where you'll find your motivation to come back tomorrow and build again. It sounds so philosophical. And maybe also entrepreneurship turns you into a philosopher. It's that bad. Before the difficult question, what was your other question?
Like, what keeps you going, even during adversity, the entrepreneurship and all that?
Yeah, small wins. But also, I had great distaste for failure. There was a time I owed close to $400,000 We weren't making money. I didn't have assets to my name that could cover that debt. My daughter had. It would have been easier to just jump on a plane and go to Seattle and start a new life. But my pride wouldn't let me. But also I would wake up and look the people I worked with in the eye, because you know when you're building a company, you're like an everyday motivational speaker. I'm telling you the truth. You have your troops that are going to battle with you. They wake up every day. It's not because you're paying their check. No. They are waking up to go to fight with you. You have to find something to tell them to keep them going. Imagine you wake up one day and quit on them. They'll go and find other jobs. But where is your reputation going to be? Commander yakwitinze. Mr. Gator. You will not sleep at night. So I had that fear of failure, and that fear of failure was driven by that voice of my grandmother, my late grandmother. I would think about it. I knew if I failed, she would still have loved me the same way. But I'm like, so what happened to these people that you left? Why didn't you pursue your dream of being a professor instead? Because you fail alone. So it's that fear that drove me. And it's strange, but fear is such a good motivator. More than the chase for glory. Does it make sense? Fear of losing is such a good... The feeling of losing is so terrible. If you've got a heartbreak before, I'm telling you, you'll try to make your next relationship work, because that feeling is awful. So like, I'm going to make this relationship work. Because I love this person so much, but I don't want to lose her. You understand? Oh man, let's make it work. I don't want to lose you. You're bargaining from a position of fear. But whatever gets you going. What do I wish I knew when I was 20? The people will screw you over. And you probably screw over some people. But at the end of the day, I think aspire for a positive scorecard. When it's all weighed, end up on the other side. But really, from a money perspective, I would get up to go and work. Like, we need to make money. Chased the exit through like months and months of due diligence, signing contracts that are like 200 pages. You're very excited. I'm going to become a millionaire. You sign the contract. 2-3 days later, money falls into your account. And all I really wanted to do was go for a drive with my daughter. Here I was, I'd chased an exit. It had happened. It was incredible. And I'm like, I need to go home, pick this girl, I have a sports car, put her in the car, lower the windows, go to the bypass, drive as fast as we possibly could, screaming to whatever stupid loud music would play. It felt glorious. It felt so good. I can't possibly describe it. So really, what that exit gave me is a chance to appreciate the little things in life. That's where the joy is. Of course, I'm speaking from a position of privilege. I don't have to pay rent. I'm not going to starve. I can afford her fees. I can afford to go to South Africa, see my family. I can afford to go to set a drink with my dad every day. That's privilege. But the little things in life really give the most joy. That conversation you're passing up to have with your friend. That run in the rain. Getting together with your boys and laughing at farts. It sounds very silly. I'm telling you the truth. But when you will look back on those moments and go like, oh, we really had a wonderful time. Going to the mountains, I once went to the mountains of Karamoja and we sat down and looked at the expanse of Karamoja and all these houses looked insignificant. Life just looked insignificant. And you're humble. When I was dying in the Renzoris the first time because I'd been stupid, all I was thinking about was that vacation I hadn't taken, that phone call to a friend I hadn't made. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to lose all this money. Can you imagine? So I wish I'd known that. Not to dissuade you from building. Please, by all means, build and be successful so you can look back and trivialize having money. I don't have a lot, but at least I can say I got it. And when you escape the basics of life, where will I eat? Where will I sleep? Where will the fees come from? Then you're going to pay so much attention to those little things. And it's incredible. I just found out that money wasn't what I needed. Freedom is what I needed. Yeah. Guys, you're sitting in a philosophy class. You came for business talk. Yeah. There was one more.
Yeah, one last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is perfect because the coffee is done. I usually run on coffee.
Hello, my name is Isaac.
Hi, Isaac. I have a brother called Isaac, a big brother.
I saw this talk from WhatsApp. It was just passed around in the group and I think his dad recommended that we come through.
What reason did he give? He said this.
It's interesting. He said actually the thing was very interesting. Yeah, we need to come through.
Did we deliver?
Yes, definitely. I wanted to pick up on a few issues, just 2 or 3. The first one is there is that issue of the cement behemoth.
Yes.
You mentioned it.
Yes. You bury money.
It's a running joke in our circles because we have run the numbers on what typical Ugandan will earn over the lifetime.
Yes.
And then if you load in a mortgage, you just know that it's done. Even if you do.
Did you go to Budo or Smack?
No.
Those are the guys who will cross all T's and dot all I's. I admire those guys.
No, it's just those idle. Maybe we are too idle.
No, you're too polished.
Yeah. I don't know if you could speak more to that because I have challenges when people take out these huge 20-year
mortgages,
5-year rolling things where you go for a top up every 3 years.
Banks have to make money.
Okay. But they personally, they're running a very, the game is really rigged.
It's rigged against them, yes.
So I don't know if you could throw some light on it. The other issue is 2 sides of investing. The first side is when someone is running a business,
yes,
and they come up to your advice, you say you would have had a board earlier.
Yeah, I would have got a board earlier.
Yes.
I wish. Yeah.
What kind of board would you run? I've had some experience being called on to boards, and someone throws you off like, I look at a psychopath. I didn't want someone like.
Yeah. You need a board that can fire you. The most productive board for me was the board that I got after I raised private equity money. Those guys could have fired me from my company for sneezing. And at times they looked for that opportunity. I didn't give it to them, but they did look for it. And oftentimes the disagreements were because of the way we viewed the business. But also because I didn't know how to work the board. So when you're starting out, create a habit of having people that check you. Of course, when you're starting out, you're going to choose your board. When you raise proper money, the board chooses itself. You will choose your representatives. You will also probably sit on the board, but that board should be able to fire you. When they fire you, it doesn't mean you've lost your shares. It just means you're no longer running the company. Steve Jobs suffered that fate, then came back. He's fired by the board choosing a side of a guy he hired. He went out and hired, convinced. So what you need to understand about board dynamics is one, and this, the managing partner of the fund that invested in me, a guy called Lucas, he taught me a lot about business. Never go to a board meeting for a decision you don't already have. Also, when you map out your board members, they have totally different interests. You might think that your interests are about bringing ideas that are going to make money for the company. Their interests might be preserving the wins that they already have. And here you are with your risk appetite, asking them to swing for the fences. One time, we were the best evaluated bidders to put pharmacies in Molago. It was voted down by my board after I chased it for 2.5 years. Contract at Solicitor General's. Even that place, I'll tell you in front of the camera, that place that has First Pharmacy, that site was offered to us first. We didn't take it. Board politics. I've chased it. I think it's a no-brainer. Guys, let's put these pharmacies and all that stuff. Contract has gone to Solicitor General. You're getting a ceremonial board vote. Guys, we are setting up pharmacies in Mulago, best evaluated bidder. Contract is coming out of Solicitor General's office soon, blah, blah, blah. Board member says, it's too risky, too risky. I got angry, didn't talk to the dude for weeks. We didn't like each other. Genuinely. Yet initially we had started off as buddies. That investment wouldn't have happened without his major input. But we got onto the board and we saw business fundamentally differently, and we all had egos and we thought we knew what we were doing, and he had more power because he was representing the fund. And here I am, you know, as a founder, you're saying, we are going to point C, okay? He's like, but from A to C, this is direct. But I see a river. We don't have a boat, we can't cross. You're like, guys, no. We can go to Ntinda, past the other side, the river, there's like a small ramp somewhere 5 kilometers away, we'll get there. They need you to draw out that map for them. You understand? You're saying we're going to point C, we all want to go to point C. But without that map, because we see that river, there's no way of crossing. You guy, you want to kill us. You understand? But for you know a section of the river, maybe, that you can jump over, but you don't know how to explain it. Or you're like, I know how rivers are formed. There's narrow sections somewhere, we just haven't found them. We can jump. Give me a decision. Do you blame them for refusing? No. You should also take part of the blame for not doing a very good job of explaining how they are going to get to point C across the river. It's not merely enough for you, the founder, to say, point C is where salvation is. Show me how I get there. Explain to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Then in that mix, there's also guys whose interests are just ESG. You're building, you're like, oh, we're here, capitalist return. I've taken $1, I'm bringing you $1.5. Why don't you get it? Why don't you give me a vote? How many women are in leadership? How are you solving this problem? How are we greening the company? Now, when you're coming for that decision, it's not enough for you to say, we're taking $1, we're bringing 1.5 in 6 months. You need to also say, this Karamajong, where we're setting up this pharmacy, they have not been accessing healthcare very well. 80% of the medicines are not in the market. They are dying earlier. We also hope to invest part of these profits in greening Karamoja. You've mapped out your board members and you know who to give what until you get your decision. You as a founder are going to be angry. If you have a functional board, you're going to be angry more times than you're going to be happy until things start working out. When people invest money in you and they ask you to professionalize the company and all that stuff, it means you're going to hire expensive CFOs, you're going to hire expensive managers and all that stuff. Your profitability is going to go like, joop. Like, but I've just got money. So it's the typical J curve that comes post-investment. So it's like you're suddenly going back into the valley of death that happens for most startups. That's where the flexing starts. Because these guys who disagree with the direction you're taking also have numbers to back them up. You're going to point C, but somehow you've ended up in a chivale, in a swamp. They're like, dude, where are you taking us? And if you're not very good at playing politics and managing that situation, I promise you they're going to kick you out. But you're not wrong. You just haven't figured out how to sell your dream. So you need to understand that. So just my relationship with that board member later, it improved because he realized, actually this dude meant well for the company. He knew what he was doing, he just didn't know how to explain it to me. For me, I thought I was speaking English. As far as I remember, I know he probably was hearing Chinese. And it's not on him. I just didn't know how to communicate. So then we aligned, and later things became better and much kind of in lockstep, and we worked out things. So that you have to remember. But build the habit of having a board at the start, bunch of friends, probably your fellow drunkos, which is a shame, or your church friends and all that stuff. But find people that are going to add value. Find people who will give you feedback as it is. So you see, if you're my board member to give me advice that just makes me feel nice, I may as well just hire myself. So anyway, to the construction thing, this is closer to my heart. And also, like what I said, we haven't done a very good job of selling to Ugandans the fact that there's value in investing in shares in companies. A typical Ugandan goes to school, finishes university, gets a job, saves for like 2 years, goes and buys a plot further and further away from Kampala because that's where the affordable ones are. Fences that plot if they do. That plot is gathering dust. It's bushy. They're paying money to slash it. They're paying money to keep speculators away from it. They're paying money to keep land grabbers away from it. They have buried 20 million shillings when they are 22, 23. They are now working to raise money to build on that plot. They raise that money when they're like 35. Come back. They have maybe 100 million. They want to build a house of 200. They've seen their friends who chose to work with government and steal money, living in billion shilling houses, and they feel like they need to belong. So they go and borrow 500 million and spend the rest of their lives paying off that mortgage. 20 years ago when I left university, actually 23. No, I left in 2007, not 20 years ago. 20 million shillings was a lot of money. If we had pulled those resources and put them in a pharmacy, like 5 people, we could have had a guardian, and all of us would have walked away millionaires. Or if we had convinced that cohort, guys, okay, you want to buy land of 20 million, fine. Go further, because you're going to hold this for the next 10 years anyway. Like I told you, say for instance, Seta was a village not many years ago. Go further than Seta. Buy for 15. Bring the 15, let's put it in a pool and let's invest in each other's businesses. Let's grow. If you lose this money, you lost it trying. But if it works, this 5 million is going to gain a lot more value than the 15 you've buried in land. So we have a lot of land banking, which is unfortunate because our people invest from a point of lack of knowledge, that's ignorance, and fear. Most especially fear. Guy has hustled to make his car 20 mites. Not easy to save. So you'd rather put it in a tangible thing that he sees. You and your shares, But if we do a better job of saying that, you know what, you invest in these shares, there's a stage at which you will exit, someone else will buy, and go like that. People will bring their money. If I start another pharmacy chain tomorrow, I want to be able to tell guys, look, in the next 4 years, give me $100,000 today. In the next 4 years, if things work, you'll have 500,000. How? This is the process. Don't loan me money like a money lender. Loan me money, give me money like an investor. In a dream of, you'll get 500K at the end of, say, 5 years. How? We're going to build value this way. How? We've done it like this before. And then we'll do what? We'll get there. So if we preach that every day, hopefully we'll get guys to liquidate their land and bring money to work for them in these businesses. Our businesses don't have capital. In this country, you're buying money at 25, 30%. And for you to get a chance to buy that money, the bank wants you to have land. It wants you to have a house. You're 25. When will you make that? You understand? There's a bank. There's a bank one time, and I'll end with this. There's a bank, the first bank I used to bank with, turnover 2 billion shillings. I bring them an order of $50,000 from an entity, a government entity that they knew paid every, say, 2 weeks upon delivery. I go to this bank and I'm like, guys, I've got $50,000 order. I'm going to supply a cancer drug. I'm buying it at maybe like $20,000, $28,000. Medicines are 0 rated. I have 18K. Here is the invoice. These guys pay me like this. These are the other transactions I've done. I have transferred this money to this supplier repeatedly through you guys. Hey, here is the last 20 transactions. I brought this drug. I supplied it. Here is the invoice. These guys paid me within 2 weeks of supplying. Here is the proof that I supplied and they paid. You have a bank statement. This is the money. You can trace it. It came to them from them. Now I've got their LPO 50K. I am going to make 22K. I only have 18. Please give me 10K. They're like, oh, this all sounds fantastic. The lady went and Now she's a top person in that bank, actually, like top 4. She went as a bank manager in Logogo, went and ran a summarized transaction thing, showed, hey, you're turning over more than 2 billion here. Perfect. But here we loan to people, now you will know the bank, we loan to people only to people who have complete houses. Can you imagine that? I stopped banking with them, moved to another bank, got $20,000, went, it's the only loan I ever got, went, bought the medicine, made that money, went back, showed her, you know what? 1 month or so later, here, this is what I wanted you to do. They changed the requirement to borrow from complete houses, and they started accepting land and all that stuff. If you dig very well, you will know the bank. I still bank with them. Money that I used to buy pineapples and tomatoes at home. But what that highlights really is the fact that capital is very expensive in this market. So we need to be creative. As a community, let's finance our own businesses from community pooling of resources. And, you know, who knows? Honestly, I can talk about businesses and entrepreneurship and suffering and winning all day. But I know you guys have to go and party. It's Friday, yeah.